Welcome, everybody, to tonight's office hours. I want to go ahead and share my screen here. I'm actually being joined tonight by my trusted friend and advisor, Chuck Bates.
Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, hey there. So Chuck is in Texas, I'm in Kentucky, but we're excited to be with you this evening. Just as you can see here, we have a disclaimer ahead of time that you need to know about, which deals with the fact that the answers we're going to give you tonight are not intended to be tax, legal, or investment advice. And in those cases, we absolutely encourage you to seek professional help. So if you have to talk to an attorney or to your tax preparer or your licensed financial planner, whoever, reach out to those people. That's why they're there. But we're going to do our best this evening to walk you through some things. Anyway, let's do this. Chuck, why don't you take a second to introduce yourself? I'll do the same when you're finished, but tell folks a little bit about yourself.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chuck Bates. I grew up as a military brat and lived in Europe most of my life. I went to the University of Nebraska, proud Cornhusker. I've worked in financial services my entire career, currently as a full-time financial advisor. And I got into the college planning area because my wife and I have an adopted little boy that came to us out of foster care in Texas. And in that process, we found out that if you are in foster care in Texas, you get tuition waivers at any in-state university. And if I figured if I didn't know that, what else didn't I know? I've spent about 5 years trying to learn this stuff, and I'm thrilled to be here participating with the College Aid Pro team.
Excellent, Chuck. Thank you. And for folks, if you don't know me, my name is Dan Bissig, and I've actually been an independent educational consultant for 17 years. I got into this industry after 20 plus years as a financial planner, stumbled into this and fell in love with coaching families through the college process. And about 5-6 years ago, I ended up selling off my insurance and investment business, focusing 100% on all aspects of everything associated with the college, from college funding to career identification and college selection, including the admissions process and all those wild and crazy financial aid forms. So we're glad to be with you this evening. What I'm going to ask you to do is, if you have questions, I need you to put those into the Q&A for us. I am going to show you something I'm really excited about, and Chuck, I think you are probably as well, which we have just launched. Actually, it went live today, a brand new tool that is in the MyCap software. And so what I've got to do here is I've got to get into that tool for just a minute. Let's see here. Because what I want to actually do is I want to walk you through what this new product looks like, this new offering. So give me just a second here. I got to try to find where I'm going. I think that's right. All right, so we're going to go in here. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to show you an example of a sample case that I've got that I created. In the past, what has happened with the program is the ability for you, I'm talking about the MyCap program here, just so we're all clear. I hope that's what you guys are aware of is MyCap, which leads to your ability to, of course, run the numbers, take a look at things. But this newest option is the ability for you to actually plug in your appeal letters or the financial aid offers that you receive so that you can go through the appeal process. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to check this out. If I go into this compare and appeal. And by the way, I'm showing you this based on the scholar level. For those of you that may be using MyCap for the first time, you probably are aware that there's a free version of it, which gives you the ability to put in up to 3 colleges. That would all be the 3 colleges that you could put up top here in the dashboard. Once you put those 3 colleges in there, it is locked, so you can't add any more. You can't take them out or make modifications. But in the scholar level, which is at 149, you've got the ability to go ahead and hop in here. And oh, by the way, while I'm thinking about this, we've got a special offer to give you this evening. If you use the letters OH, so O for Oscar, H for Henry, 15, you can get a 15% discount off of that upgrade. And so that's a special deal that you get this evening for being with us tonight on this presentation. O15. But again, if we go down to the appeal, compare and appeal option, I've already uploaded this, but what you do here is that you just upload a letter. And that letter looks something like this. This is an example of a sample financial aid letter that came in from Miami University. You can see some of the stats that are on here and things. But here's the cool part about this. You see what this program is now allowing you to do is, see this translate the offer letter? Watch this. When I click this, what the program is doing behind the scenes, it is actually taking a look at that financial aid offer and it's going to populate it for you. And so it's actually going to put some of the details in here, specifically if there are scholarships that are now offered. And see, you can see it says success. We were able to read and auto translate your award letter. And so if I go ahead and close this, what it's going to do now is it actually has populated right here, in this particular case, the $10,000 scholarship that the student received. Also, if there are any loans, in this particular case, that financial aid offer letter did not have any loans on it, but if it did, it would also populate those in here as well. So it's all about trying to give you total transparency when it comes to the software. And so where that comes into play is, imagine having one college after the other college of schools that your student has applied to. And I'm, of course, talking here to you seniors, to the parents of seniors or students, if you're on this call or this webinar, so that you've got the chance to see side by side what these schools actually are offering you, so that you can plan accordingly. Let's not forget that our whole goal here at College Aid Pro and the MyCap software is trying to help you make the very best informed decisions as a family. We don't want you to put yourselves into a huge amount of debt, if any debt at all. And so it's all about affordability, folks. And so that's why being able to compare these numbers side by side is such an exciting thing. So again, just wanted to share that with you. That is brand new that it does it, that it actually auto-populates that. Again, you put in the offer letter into the system as a PDF, for example, and then you hit this translate offer button and it'll go through the process of doing that. Isn't that pretty cool? What do you think, Chuck?
I think that's awesome. And one thing I'd like to clarify on that is the offer letter Dan showed you is very specific. You'll notice it had cost of attendance information, the actual merit awards and potential loans and so on. That's not the same as an acceptance letter that says you happen to be getting merit aid. Those are two different letters. And my suspicion is the acceptance letter that says, congratulations on your acceptance to TCU. We've awarded you this scholarship, probably won't upload in the same way, would be my guess. So just keep that in mind as you're uploading any award letters, and think that's probably an important distinction.
Yeah, that's good, Chuck. I totally agree with you, because it really is important that you actually put in there the information that you need. Use that financial aid offer, because the system is looking for that. It's looking for the scholarships. It's looking for keywords and things like that, I'm sure, to do it. Anyway, so our software is really sophisticated, folks. It gives you the ability to put in your colleges. It gives you the ability to search for scholarships within the platform and everything else like that. So just super excited to give you yet again another tool to take it to a whole nother level. Chuck, why don't we do this? Let's start taking a look at some of these questions that have come in. First one is, should my son let the colleges he will not accept their admissions know in his email blast? I'll go ahead and answer that. The answer is absolutely yes. It's professional courtesy to let those colleges know that your son is not going to be coming to them. And the reason being is, quite frankly, if you don't, they're going to continue to pursue you, your son. So yeah, send them a quick email to let them know that he's not going to be attending.
Is there a good, Dan, is there a good timeline on that? Should you wait until you've got all your acceptances in, or is it okay once, hey, I got into my dream school, that's where I'm going? Any feedback on that?
Yeah, I don't think it hurts to wait a little bit, Chuck, because what we're trying to do here is you want to make sure that everything gets set up correctly with the other college. There would be nothing worse than something going haywire with that and paying the price by the fact that you told all the colleges, hey, I'm not coming to you. Yeah. So you've got a little bit of time. Let's not forget, it used to be that May the 1st was National Decision Day. Now, it still is with some colleges. They still think of that, don't they? But the truth, that kind of disappeared with the whole lawsuit that was brought by the Department of Justice against the National Association of College Admission Counselors a few years back. But there are still colleges that hope that you're going to make that decision prior to May the 1st to lock in that scholarship. Yeah, you've got some time. It doesn't have to be done immediately, but if you want to get those colleges from continuing to pursue your student, I would do it sometime soon.
Okay.
Chuck, can you see these questions?
I can, and I'm happy to take number 2. California has now made FAFSA completion a requirement for graduation. Do you think universities will now look at our financial situation when awarding merit-based awards? I have a feeling we're going to get less merit aid based on having a high EFC. So just so you know, I live in Texas. Texas has done the same thing. How I'm working with families, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Generally, merit aid is given through the Office of Admissions. If you're truly concerned about that, you can apply for admission first, wait to get that, and complete the FAFSA later, potentially, as one option. That's just one way we've dealt with it. Some schools will probably take advantage of it. Some probably will not. Dan, I don't know if you have any opinions on that, but the financial aid comes through the financial aid office. Merit awards come through the Office of Admissions. So they're two separate departments.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Chuck. And what I would also say to you folks out there is, look, there are colleges that are absolutely need aware when it comes to making their admissions decisions. And you just have to know that going in. And that's something that you should be able to check with the school on, or even Google it. But the fact is, those merit scholarships are something that are based on your students' talent, their academic successes, and those types of things, or their athletic abilities. So it really is something where dive into the schools, talk to the schools, understand what you're getting into. The finances are out there anyway. So the fact that they're requiring you to do that, unfortunately, that's just one of the added requirements. Okay, let's go on to this next one. I'm checking because I completed 2 FAFSAs this year for my twins, and one FAFSA EFC is $10,000, the other is $70,000 approximately. Is there something wrong? Wow. Yeah, there has got to be something wrong, because let me just say this, at least this last year, colleges were still working off of using the multi-student discount. And what that means is that at least at FAFSA school, let's be very clear on this, the federal application for federal student aid. When you've got 2 kids in college, they're going to be approximately about the same as far as the EFC amount per child. So it should be $10,000 per child or $70,000 per child. It shouldn't be 10 and 70. So you're probably going to need to go in there and check that second child's EFC or their FAFSA and see if a correction needs to be made. That would be my advice.
Yeah. So each student, you should be able to pull the SAR, the SAR, and depending on whether you use the IRS link or not, you'll be able to compare field by field what you entered. So that might be the best way to check that. And then depending on where the difference is, it might give you some insight to the problem.
All right, Chuck, why don't you take the next one?
My daughter's a finalist for the Jack Kent National Scholarship, and they're saying we have to fill out the CS profile, even though we've done the FAFSA. Does College Aid have a recording on CS profile? I believe our esteemed colleague Peg has done a line by line of the CS profile. I don't know exactly how to point people to that. Do you know if that's on the College Aid website?
I think it's on the YouTube channel. Yeah, I think if you go looking for College Aid Pro YouTube, you should find that. Worst case scenario, send an email to support@collegeaidpro.com. And he's absolutely right. Peg did an awesome presentation on that you can look at.
And just for a point of reference, if they tell you need to complete something for a scholarship, I would make sure that you get it completed and done by the date that they've suggested.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What's the next one here? Okay. So the FAFSA came back with an EFC that was way higher than we anticipated or any other estimates we ran, including through MyCap. We allowed it to pull data from the IRS directly, so we can't see the numbers. Oh, I hate when that happens. Do you think we should pull our app and resubmit all the data manually? We thought we'd heard from our high school counselors and you all that syncing with the IRS saved time and worked, but we worry somehow the wrong info was pulled. So here's the deal. In my opinion, you sure don't want to go back and try to redo the FAFSAs. You're just going to create a jumbled mess by trying to do that. What you're going to need to do at this point is contact the financial aid officers at the colleges where your student is applied to and ask them if they can pull up the numbers. In other words, it's the hidden numbers that you can't see. That's the unfortunate part about it, is that those details are there. It's just that only the financial aid officers at the colleges can see it at this point. And so I would contact one of your schools and see if they can't provide that for you and see if you can figure out what happened. Sometimes what took place is maybe maybe you changed jobs and there was a 401k rollover that could have happened, or some other type of thing actually occurred where that same type of issue happened where there was more income there. So that would be my advice. Reach out to the school.
Yeah. And when you reach out to the schools, one thing that I've seen have a positive result is complete their net cost calculator or their version of the EFC estimate and use that as to why you thought there was a significant difference, and they'll generally be pretty responsive.
All right. Chuck, how about if you take the next one here on Northeastern?
Sure, I'll give it a try. What do we got here? Northeastern U states they meet demonstrated need. For example, if my student has 100K saved in his name for college, once he spends that all down? Would he qualify for more money grant scholarship his junior or senior year once his money is all gone? I would say that you complete the FAFSA each year, and assuming that he doesn't have additional income or assets, that his EFC would in theory go down as the spend goes down, if I'm understanding this question correctly. Dan, do you have anything to add on that?
Nope, that's absolutely right, Chuck. I agree. And the other thing is that there's just a variable here, which is that your income could increase next year. That's the challenge, right, folks? From one year to the next, your income and your asset values can fluctuate. And that's why the colleges expect you to complete those forms and submit them every year.
Yeah, I don't know if it's too late, but if the student has 100K in his name, could you add yourself as a joint account holder and potentially reduce that number by 50% because it's shared between you? Something like that might be helpful, but I don't know all the details of your situation.
Okay, the next one. Do you have a sample appeal letter to share with just generalities, just so we can understand the tone, et cetera? So there may be some kind of a sample that's in the actual presentation that Matt and Peg had done on the appeal process. You might want to check that out. Also, one of the things that we do offer, and I'll bring this up right now and mention it because of, again, that OH15 discount. In fact, I'll stick that here in the chat for just a second. By the way, if you're putting any questions in the chat, they really need to go in the Q&A for us so that we can see those, okay? But I just put into the chat OH15. That's a discount for 15% off. And so let's say that you really need some help as far as drafting or creating that appeal letter. That's one of the things that we would be happy to help you with in these 1-hour consults. That's something that you can schedule that expert meeting on your MyCap account. So it gives you the ability to go in there. And quite frankly, we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about and whatever issues are going on, but we can also help you draft that appeal letter to the college or university. And the reason that you have to be careful with that is because every family situation is unique. Okay. If we gave you a sample, it may have nothing to do with your situation. And if we can be of help, we'd obviously love to do that if we can. All right, Chuck, you want to do the next one here?
Sure. And I'm marking these answered live. So if we get any follow-up, let me know. My son is a junior. Can you speak to whether or not the SAT really matters? If you do not submit SAT scores, does the college assume it was a lower score? How does that really play out? So this is a little bit outside of my expertise. I really focus on the financial side. What I can say is there are scholarships that are automatic based on your SAT scores. So if you're competing for one of those, you'd want to make sure and submit your score because that could have an impact. But beyond that, different schools treat things differently. I know some colleges treat GPA much more heavily than SAT scores, and some schools treat the test scores equally as heavy as the GPA.
Yeah, and I would also chime in and say this too. Just realize this, in this day and age, a test optional. There are colleges out there that indeed, or that will look at your student holistically with or without a test score from an admission standpoint. Now, where it could get a little interesting is if you're also hoping for your student to qualify for the largest scholarships, the most competitive scholarships. There are indeed colleges that still expect you to submit test scores. And, it comes into play. So you're just going to have to do the research into the schools individually to know. There are colleges out there that are absolutely admitting students to their schools without test scores. And so, again, do your homework, see what you can come up with in that case. Okay.
Yep. In Houston, we have something called Houston Area Recruiters Network, which is all the college recruiters that live locally in Houston. And if you reach out to them, they may recruit for Ole Miss, but live in Houston, University of Oregon, University of Iowa. If you reach out to them and ask that question, they will give you a very candid answer in most cases.
All right, so here's the next question. We're thinking of appealing the financial aid offer at my son's first choice school. We're collecting offers from other schools to use for this. Good for you. I think that's a good leveraging tool. Is it best to schedule a call to appeal or write a letter or both? You know what? I will tell you that it's totally up to you. I will say this. I think that the first contact needs to be from the student. Because I really do believe that the student needs to express to the school that, hey, this is their number one school. They really want to come to the school, but this is the dilemma that they're finding themselves in. That they've got these other offers that have come through. By the way, they're going to expect specific numbers, so specific examples. However, realize that a school like Stanford is not going to consider your local community college as competition or anything that they'll use as a leveraging tool. So just be careful, make sure that you're using comparable schools when you're going and using that kind of information to talk about it. So I suggest an email initially from the student. then followed up with a phone call. The parents, you can get involved too. There's nothing wrong with going back multiple times. It's not going to hurt the student's ability to continue to go to that school. Keep going until you finally heard the last no, I guess.
Great answer.
Okay.
I'll grab this next one. It says, we submitted our FAFSA and we're only offered the unsubsidized loan. Do we need to use it each year or lose it? The short answer is yes. Those loans are each year, typically 5,500 freshman year, 65 sophomore, 75 junior year and beyond. And if you don't use those, you can't go back and get those dollars. The unsubsidized, subsidized question is just decided by the school based on need.
Perfect answer. Yep, that's right. Okay. By the way, folks, again, put your questions into the Q&A, not the chat for us, please. My daughter was accepted to the University of Michigan out of state. It's her dream school. I would likely get decent aid at private schools. Is there anything we can do to get more aid from U of M? No, there's not. Unfortunately, as an out-of-state student, because you have to think of it this way. If you were an in-state student, University of Michigan, and if there was a financial need, they're going to do everything they can to help you go to that school if a student's been accepted there. But as an out-of-state student, you lose that leverage. Unfortunately, it's significantly more expensive to go to Michigan out of state, or quite frankly, most schools out of state. And no, in this particular case, there really isn't. Unless your income and asset situation change from year to year, where maybe then you might qualify for money. But even then, it's likely going to be more the federal money than it is going to be money from Michigan.
I agree.
Chuck, you're next.
Oh, hold on.
That must be added too.
Or, so this is maybe a follow-up question. Can we save it and access when needed? Offered each year, can you access it cumulatively? What is the interest rate? Yeah, you cannot save it. There's no way to save it. It gets paid directly to the school, right? There's no way they can somehow keep that in their checking account and use it the following year. You can't access it cumulatively. Interest rates, I don't know that number off the top of my head. I want to say
4.99 is what it was this last year.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Can you discuss the appeal process? How soon should you start? Do you share info about competing scholarships offered? So the answer to the bottom one is yes, you absolutely do. Again, if you have comparable schools, you know, that they look at each other in that way. When do you start the appeal process? As soon as you've got enough information to provide to them. The sooner the better, by the way, folks, because you have to know that it's a situation where colleges could ultimately use the line, we've unfortunately run out of money. Okay. There is a bucket of money that they have out there for this type of process. And I believe, and I'm sure Chuck, you agree with me, you got to get after it as soon as you can, especially if you've got the information to support it. Now, that being said, you do need to know what is the reasoning or the rationale between your asking for additional money. Was it the loss of a job or medical bills or any number of things that come into play? You've got to be prepared to support whatever it is that you're claiming that's going on there.
Yeah. And the more personal you can be and the more specific you can be, I think the better your chances.
Yeah, exactly. Like asking for a specific dollar amount. If you could get it to this, to give us this extra amount of money, this will help us out.
And if it is a school that you really want to attend, I would encourage you to tell them that if that's the number they need to get you to go there, you can include that. Doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it's more personal.
Yeah.
Son got in early action at a lot of schools. Are you guys hearing any feedback when I talk by chance?
No.
Okay, good. A lot of schools, but quite a few of them haven't provided financial aid offers yet, even though we did the FAFSA in November. Is that normal? In general, I think most financial aid award letters, some do start trickling now, but I would say by spring break is when you should expect to have it. Dan, any suggestions on that timeline?
No, you're absolutely right. Look, your best idea on this is to go to their website. A lot of times they'll put on there when they think they're going to release that to them. And look, worst case, go ahead and give them a phone call. It's okay to check with the financial aid office and say, can you tell me when this is coming out? I'll give you an example. I was on a call today with one of my clients, and lo and behold, we made the phone call while we were online and found out that the son apparently had already received the financial aid offer on the 26th. And hadn't said anything to mom about it. Moms and dads, check with your students, because maybe you've received it and you don't even realize that you have or that they have, because it's on their student portal within that platform. Let's see, our son's first choice, George Mason, admitted him to their honors college, but offered very little merit aid. Our understanding is that GMU often gives more merit aid after students are there for a year and apply while they're doing well. Okay. It seems a lot for us to commit hoping that aid comes through for years 2 on. I agree with you. Have you seen this working for many students? He's getting more merit offers from another school. There's no doubt that some colleges do have scholarships that are given to upperclassmen. And we hear about that in particular majors and things like that. You can't count on it. It's a wishful thinking that in 2 years more money will come through. And maybe that will indeed happen. But I believe you've got to make a solid financial decision from the beginning, not based on some hopes that there will be extra money down the road. So that would be my advice in that case.
Dan, I'm going to let you answer this next one about the recording because I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I see the recording button. Is this being sent out later? I may not be able. Yes. Yep. So here's the good news, folks. If you registered for this event this evening, you will indeed get a copy or a link to the recording tomorrow. No worries.
All right. I'll try and take a swing at this next one. It says, for the CSS profile, they typically look at home equity. However, in Texas, home equity loans are limited to 80% loan to value. We are already there. Will financial aid offices take the 80% limit into account when they look at giving aid and not count our equity? So I guess, unfortunately, in financial aid, and especially around home equity, I think the answer is generally it depends. I think there's a lot of schools that treat home equity very differently. For example, Northwestern and Stanford would be two pretty dramatic differences depending on how much home equity you have. So in this case, I think I'm gonna have to say it goes school by school, and you'd have to call and ask them.
Right on. That's absolutely the case. And that's why it's so daggone complicated, folks, when you're looking at the inclusion or not the inclusion of it. Okay, my EFC is high, so I am not getting any based aid at the schools my children are applying to, and they're barely giving us much money for merit aid, even though they are strong students academically and otherwise. Any suggestions? I have twins, so it's tough as a single parent. Oh boy, I bet it is. Yeah. Challenge is this. That's, by the way, folks, it's one of the biggest reasons why I say use the MyCap software, because it's going to give you total disclosure about what's going to happen out there. And we're going to give you our best projections based on the information that you put in there. Okay. It's the phrase junk in, junk out. If you don't put accurate details on there, don't expect that you're getting accurate answers. You also have to know that the merit scholarships, for example, in our database, it's so complicated. We've got an entire team that all they do all day long is that they go searching for this stuff and trying to keep up with it. So what I would suggest that you're going to need to do is this. I mean, at this point, it may be too late to do this, but believe it or not, there are still colleges out there that are accepting applications. Maybe there's a possibility there could be some schools out there that would reward your high achieving students with more money. That's a possibility. I know that doesn't solve the immediate problem because you're thinking, okay, our students, our twins went through all this trouble to apply to all these great schools, and now we're sitting back trying to figure out how we're going to pay for it. I would also say to you, this is the time that you're going to have to be going other scholarships, other private scholarships, and going after websites like FastWeb and Going Merry, which is MERY, and MyScholarly, and all these other places are these other opportunities. Not to mention, don't forget, on our platform, we've got a scholarship search tool that's in there too. So you're just going to have to turn every rock over and see if you can find opportunities. And try to have a conversation with the financial aid officers at the schools to see if they're sympathetic to your situation with twins. Yeah.
Great answer. I did, for the person asking about the Houston area recruiting network, the answer is www.theharn.org, and I did type that in, but the question seemed to disappear. So I don't know if you actually got that or if it just disappeared because I answered it live. Does the FAFSA now count the assets inside family business towards EFC? I'm not sure I completely understand this question, but basically the FAFSA, if you have a family business with less than 100 employees, it won't value the business. So my assumption is if the assets are inside the family business and they have less than 100 employees, the answer is probably not. But if there's something more specific you're asking, I'd have to defer. Dan, you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, Chuck. So let me say this too. If you're talking about current, he is absolutely right. It does not take that business into consideration. However, stay tuned, folks, because the FAFSA Simplification Act, of course, has changed that big time, meaning that family businesses will be added into your EFC with when you complete the FAFSA in October of 2023. Unfortunately, while it didn't impact you before, it will in the future. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Chuck. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, assuming, yeah, and currently it's if you have 100 employees or less, or excuse me, less than 100 employees, and then it's any employees next year, right?
That's right. Yeah. If my daughter was accepted for an honors program, should we appeal for a higher merit award than what was initially offered from admissions? It's possible that they gave, so here's what I would say to you. Some honors colleges come with early registration, a better dorm, and some come with merit scholarships, but they don't all come that way. And so it just depends on what that school offers when it comes to you getting into that type of an honors program. So you're just going to have to check with the school to see how that works.
Do we have to submit FAFSA each year in order to be continually offered the unsubsidized loan that was offered in the first year, assuming financials are the same? You have to complete the FAFSA every year, and I encourage everybody to do that regardless of income. I think it makes a lot of sense, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get the same amount because financials and assets and home equity and all those things can change. So I would be hesitant to say it'll be the same each year, but you would need to apply every year.
Perfect. All right. So for divorced parents, how do you determine who fills out the FAFSA form? I'm the custodial parent, but his dad pays child support. Here's the first question. Are we talking this past FAFSA season or the future FAFSA season? Because here's again where there's a big change coming. Right now, it is the parent with, or this, the parent with whom the student lives at least 51% of the time. And then there's the amount of benefit that you're providing to that child. In the future, they're eliminating that 51% and they're going strictly with the parent who provides the most financial benefit to the child. So it really depends on which FAFSA you're talking about. So that's a big change that's coming. It's going to rattle a lot of families. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest change, especially when you think of how many families, blended families these days.
Sure is. Yeah.
Okay, this looks like a long one. My daughter will be starting college in fall of 2023. I'm split from the other parent and we have 50-50 custody. We chose the other parent to fill out the FAFSA because her income and assets were less. However, she has significant dollars in a 529 and will pay for 80 to 90 of the tuition, room, and board costs for our daughter. Normally, we trade the child tax deduction every year, and I would take it for 2022, which saves me significant money in taxes. But should I not do that because it might hurt us with financial aid filing for the FAFSA next year? I make twice as much as the other parent and have twice as much in assets. This is a very good and comprehensive explanation, but I'm afraid it doesn't have all the information we might need. And for a question like this, you might want to try and book an hour with one of our experts to make sure they have all the information to answer this correctly. In general, Dan mentioned it, whoever the child lives with 51% of the time. Since you have 50-50 custody, I think it's the right parent probably completed at this time. The rest of it, I can't tell if there's, however, she has significant dollars in a 529.
And there's a lot of moving parts there. Chuck.
Yeah, there's just way too many moving parts. The 529 would be considered a parent asset and only assessed at 5.6%. So that's not going to affect your EFC as much as a high income. But again, yeah, I'd encourage you to book an hour with one of our experts specifically on this question.
Yeah, because you sure don't want to get that wrong. And by the way, it's not just getting it wrong this year, it's getting it wrong every year moving forward. And by the way, just one other comment, it has nothing to do who claims the child on the tax return. Everybody thinks that, nothing at all, no impact. All right. Excellent. Let's see. Hi, I'm a parent of a junior in high school. My mother passed away in January. I'm so sorry for your loss. There was a trust which contains mostly real estate plus a couple of transfer and death accounts. I inherited, this is another long one here, Chuck.
Yeah.
2 other inheritance on the real estate will be sold. You know what? Here's what I'm going to say to you. Really, this is really an in-depth conversation or question, something that's more in depth than we can take on this call. You really ought to go ahead and schedule a 1-hour meeting. And folks, we don't mean to do it, but you got to understand this is an in-depth asking about transfer on death, all kinds of estate questions and things, and its impact on the FAFSA and so forth. So we just can't give you that kind of answer just willy-nilly.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't feel comfortable with much more information.
Yeah.
All right. When a family is awarded 100% need-based aid for the first 2 years and then the financial situation changes, will colleges most often change the award for the last 2 years or maintain the 100% need-based award? I think that can vary school by school. I think need-based awards are applied for each year on the FAFSA. So I think there is a chance you could lose that. It's always worth reaching out to the school and asking that question, how they handle their aid awards. Are they 4 years? Are they 1 year at a time? And ask that question as specifically as you can.
Yeah. And I would also throw in there, once again, there's nothing that says that your income and asset position isn't going to change from year to year. And that's exactly what they're using to offer that, unless they're also going to take into consideration home equity or whatever. There's a lot that can happen over that 4 years that your student is in college. Chuck's absolutely right. You're just going to have to ask that question and talk to them directly. All right. Do you recommend drawing down against a 529 before pursuing other financial means to cover cost? Example, a home equity loan, or do you borrow first, giving the 529 a little more room to grow tax-free? So Chuck, I forgot to bring my crystal ball with me tonight. Broke a few years ago, man. I really wanted to work on it, and I've tried to tape it back, but look, in all seriousness, here's the thing I will tell you. Back to what Chuck said a few minutes ago, the loans are a use it or lose it. So you have to know that if you're intending to take out those federal student loans, it's $5,500 the freshman year, $6,500 the sophomore year, $7,500 the junior and the senior year. And if you go a fifth year, they'll throw another $4,000 at your student. But that's it. That's the amount of federal money that your student can get without a job, without a credit score, without a cosigner. And so if the odds are ultimately that you're going to need to take those loans because the interest rates are normally lower than you may be able to get on the open market, I would suggest that you take that into consideration when you're trying to figure it out. And it really does come down to all the buckets. It's an integration and coordination of multiple things, right? It could be that your student's going to have to get a job. It could be that there's loans. It could be that's coming out of savings. It could be that you're going to have to stop contributing to your 401k plan for maybe a short period of time to fund that type of thing. But any other thoughts on that, Chuck?
I just say this is what I call a personal finance question. And in my opinion, personal finance is 80% personal and 20% finance. There's a lot of math you can do around that, but really, how do you feel most comfortable? How do you view borrowing? All those things go into it. So I think your answer was perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Last one. Are you working with any families with a student accepted to Pepperdine? They've moved their financial aid decision release date twice. They sent back admitted students. First, they sent admitted students an email moving award date back from 1/15 to 2/1. On 2/1, they sent another email kicking it back to 2/15. They say there is technical issues. Have you heard anything about this? It seems odd. So I'm not currently working with anybody applying to Pepperdine, although my freshman daughter is a golfer and wants to play there. That's the limit I can assist on this question.
Yeah, and I did have a student apply to Pepperdine, but she's already since decided that she's going to Rollins down in Florida. Sorry, Rollins College in Florida, and they would not have been eligible for financial aid. Just knowing the dynamics of this family, but what a mess! That's a mess, man. If they're having to do that much bumping, something's happened there. Whether it's a staffing issue, a technology issue, it's hard to say what's going on that's creating that problem.
Yeah, in a case like this, I think the best course of action is just politely make a call on a regular basis and to try and stay informed. Be persistent, but be polite, and you'll get it when they make it available.
Yeah, so you're saying every student we know got that email. Yeah, what a nasty email to receive, especially if you're hesitant to get it and are sitting back waiting for that offer to come through. All right, well, listen, it's 7:43. We still have some time available here if anyone has any other questions. There's one. I don't know, Chuck, is it you or me?
I'll read it out. Let's see what it says.
All
My
right.
son has not heard about acceptance or not from any of the schools he's applied to. USC has told us to upload documentation of financial change, job loss. We have just received the W-2. Is USC one of the schools that take need into account for admission? Should we submit that or wait till he's possibly accepted and include in the official appeal? There's a lot of it depends in this one. Do you live in the state of California or not? I think if you don't, your odds are a lot lower. If you do, you might have a chance. I'm shocked that acceptance, not shocked, I shouldn't say, but most of the people I'm working with have got a majority of their acceptances. So to not get any surprises me a little bit. Dan, any other thoughts?
No, I totally agree with you. That's the one thing that happens, unfortunately, is that families apply to out-of-state schools that have a financial need, hoping that they're going to get money. But again, I can't stress to you enough, their first priority in that state is to fund the needs of their in-state students. And might you get things like the Pell Grant, the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant? Might there be some other school-wide grants that maybe the student receives? Maybe. But unfortunately, it's a per school basis in that case, based on their endowments. Now, if you're a school like Harvard that has $16 billion in their endowment fund, you'd think they might be able to open those per strings a little bit.
Okay. I see some additional comments. Auditioning for music school I've never helped a family with music school, so I don't know the specifics of that. The addition process takes a long time.
Yeah, and I wouldn't think that music school, unless there's a scholarship potential there, would have any impact on the financial aid for sure. That's a separate merit-based scholarship possibly the student might receive.
USC is a private. Why would state residency matter? Do you have any
No, you're
thoughts
right
on
about
that?
that. Yeah, that's true. It is a private school. Residency doesn't matter, but I can tell you if you look at the stats on that school, the highest when you've got a school, let's use some of the other UCs to get over 100,000 applications for 7,000 spots. It's just a huge thing, but you're correct. The residency wouldn't matter, but it is going to matter in general as to what they do there.
In the 24-25 FAFSA application, they're asking that separated parents need to be legally separated, no more formal separation. Here is the link to draft page 9.
Okay, thanks for sharing that with us. And yeah, legally separated makes sense. Yeah, you got to know though that, so let me give you one that, and Chuck, maybe you've heard of this one too. I had somebody one time mention this. The mom and dad were divorced, but still living in the same house. And I get that. I understand that in some cases that's what can happen. But the truth of the matter is, if you're in that situation, you are considered, because you're under the same roof, you have to complete the financial aid forms as though you're still one, or the separation's the same way. It's very clear in the directions that they say with the financial aid form as to how they handle that. So just be careful. Let's see, that was a follow-up. Okay.
Is there a particular person with the admission department to send the appeal letter to, like a regional liaison? The admission department would handle merit-based aid, and the financial aid department would handle need-based aid. So it depends, I think, on what grounds you're appealing. But Dan, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, if you're doing financial aid, it absolutely has to go through the financial aid office. Don't get confused here, folks. You have to know this, and for clarification, you can appeal for more merit aid, but you can also appeal for more need-based aid. And so it's two different departments likely within the same that you'll be talking to in that particular case. If you're trying to get more merit aid for your student because you think the school's has the possibility to do that, then that's likely going to be an admissions versus the financial aid that you got to go straight to them. I'll clarify, he's not heard from ISC because of the audition process. Okay. And once again, it could be that they're controlling when they're going to release that information to you. But I mean, I've had students that have applied at different times for that type of thing. Okay.
We see it was merit-based. If it's merit-based, Office of Admissions, but there might be a name on your acceptance letter that came with the award. You could start there. Again, going back to what Dan said earlier, encourage the student to take that initiative, reach out. If it gets to the wrong place, they'll tell you it's the wrong place. Persistent and polite, and personalize it.
Yeah, that's right. Be persistent. Don't be a pain in the you-know-what, folks, because it can be persistent, pleasantly persistent. Again, you're going to get a lot farther ahead by doing that than you are if you rattle somebody, because it's going to spread like wildfire that it's that person again calling up. Tell you what, we had one that came through that was a question that was on another meeting here. It says, for the FAFSA, due to unforeseen circumstances and delays, our 2020 tax was filed and the forms were completed recently by the CPA. We used the values in that tax report and manually input it into the FAFSA. Does the final tax report that was filed with the IRS have to be returned and be official by the IRS by a certain date for the schools to finalize their offers? They are already making preliminary offers based on the numbers submitted. Well, so the answer is obviously no. It sounds like what happened was they were willing to use that information. And that is the one advantage, by the way, of manually entering in your details. The only time that you could ever get stuck with that and caught is if you find that a school is going to require verification. And in the case of verification, that means they want to see those tax documents. And so you better hope that you got those back and that they're certified so that you can send them off. So.
Yeah, the one just came in here, a late one. If colleges know that rollovers affect AGI and ultimately EFC, why doesn't the FAFSA just let you take it out from the start? And for the college that asks for the CSS, they have the 1040s and can see it on there. I think anytime you're talking about our wonderful government, there's a lot of bureaucracy that leads to coding changes and programming changes. And I think at one point they did not allow you to use, or like the IRS link would fail in some cases if you had a rollover, but not all cases. I wish there was a better answer, but it's just their system isn't equipped to handle it. And the volume of data going through there is the number of applications, the number of people is so huge. They're just fighting to stay afloat, I think.
Yeah, very true. And the other thing I would say to you too is just realize that if you manually enter things, you've got the ability then to tell your story on the FAFSA, not as much as you can on the CSS profile, where you've got actually that extra section at the very end where you can put details in there, and or later on, you can, of course, appeal to any of these schools when it comes to it. But I do know this, that if you, for example, had a bump in your adjusted gross income by that rollover, there's a spot on the FAFSA when you do it manually where you can note that. So just something to keep in mind for the future.
On the rollover question, should we be manually backing it out for the FAFSA? I left it in and assumed I would use it for an appeal. I don't have a strong opinion on that. I guess my gut tells me you don't want any more potential income counted than absolutely positive. So if I could back it out, I would. That would be my opinion. But
yeah, and by the way, I don't think it's going to help your cause. Oh, I forgot to remove this. It comes back to that manual removal. You ought to just do it up front if you can, to keep it as simple on yourself as possible.
And a very wise man once told me they can't unsee what they see. So more you can keep out while being honest, not fraudulent, and can back up, I think behooves you the way to do that.
Yeah, let's see. What do we have here? Just joined after work. I think you just addressed my question on the FAFSA and the numbers from the tax report filed. We had to manually enter our numbers because the final 2020 tax was filed late. Is there a final deadline for this? Look, if you entered it in, then hopefully you're good to go. You have to know it comes down to the colleges. They have their own deadlines. And in fact, CS Profile is very straightforward about this. If you look at the IDOC, where they've got in there when the colleges expect to receive things, you've got to follow that protocol. And so just know that it might be a conversation you've got to have with the school if they're looking for documentation that maybe you weren't able to provide quite yet. And I get it. Sometimes there are things that happen that delay the filing of those 2020 taxes to do it. Although I'm hoping you're talking about the filing of 2021 taxes, because that's what we're really dealing with here. It should be 2021 taxes for the 2023-2024 FAFSA, because it's the 2-year look back, the prior. Yeah.
And that was the last one.
I don't know. Any other questions? Okay, good. We're glad it was 2021. That's good news. Let's do this then. Let's see what we've got. Keep going. I love it. Keep asking the questions, folks. Chuck and I are happy to help you here.
If you apply out of state to a public university but establish residency in the state before the school session begins, will your merit awards be reduced? I'm going to say that's another, it depends. I suspect each school will treat that differently. I've seen some schools that will not count you as a resident if you haven't lived there for a certain amount of time. So again, one of those cases where it's going to depend on a school by school basis.
Yep, it absolutely is. Look, folks, I will tell you, a long time ago, colleges started to pick up on this. And remember, it's legislation that comes out of the state assemblies that determines how in-state, out-of-state residency is considered. And some of them are just straightforward. You have to live here for 12 months. You have filed your state tax returns. You have to have the title of your car in this state, blah, 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 all these other pieces of the puzzle. And if you don't have it, it's not like you just have a rental property that you have down there. Now, I did hear something unique though, Chuck. When we were down in Florida, one of the schools was talking about the fact that they do have a grandparent exclusion down there that says that if a grandparent lives there, that it's possible, and if the grandparent has lived in Florida for at least a year, that there are some schools that will give them in-state tuition. Is that the craziest thing? Grandparents. So again, that's a unique situation for any of those of you that have snowbirds that are heading to say Florida. Maybe there's some opportunities with some of the colleges down there, but that was a new one for me. I never heard of that one.
I love those one-off ones that you don't know. I'm going to let you handle the question from Ingrid on the splitting the 1 hour session, and I'll take the next one after that.
Yeah. Okay. Ingrid, you know what? It would really come down to the fact if you're working with one of our CAP experts, which Chuck and I both are, by the way, but if they're willing to meet with you like a half hour one time and a half hour another time, but Traditionally, it's a straight 1 hour session, okay, as far as what you're doing. The idea there is that you come prepared with all of your questions that we can work with you. If that expert can move it and meet with you another half an hour, they may do that. But I just can't speak for everybody, okay?
Does a one-time sign-on bonus or one-time performance review bonus a reason for appeal? That's a tough one because you can't just arbitrarily exclude that. It's going to be on your taxes as income. I think you can definitely appeal, but it goes back to what a wise man once told me. They can't unsee what they've already seen, and I don't know how effective it will be. You might get a little bit of a reprieve or forgiveness, but I'm not super optimistic.
Right. Yep. Their whole philosophy is show me the money, give me it all up front so that we can deal with it. And then I see that you got a continuation on your question here about that hour, half hour. I understand what you're saying. Like I said, I think that if you reach out to us, it's just going to be on a per expert basis. That's the only way that I can answer that as far as the half hour type of thing. Okay.
If there are twins, do you need 2 MyCap accounts, or is there a discount for twin MyCap accounts? I think you only need the one. Is that correct, Dan?
Nope. So if there are twins, do you need 2? I do need 2 MyCaps. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
The reason you'll want to have 2 is because don't forget, your students probably can apply to different colleges. And so if you're going to run your numbers and you want to see the details, then you need to really run both of them separately to do it. However, don't forget, folks, that you've got the ability to use the OH15, which will give you that 15% discount off of both of those. But you definitely want your own individual MyCap accounts.
Thank you for that clarification. I know we're getting close to the end here. I'll try.
We are. Yeah, 1 minute.
Slide this one. Do timeshare 1-week properties that don't bring any revenue, only incurring maintenance fee costs, do those have to be reported on the CSS as an asset? Value of non-401k retirement investments. These are fluctuating all the time. How to estimate and put a value on this for CS? Boy, I've never had that one come up before. I wouldn't include it as an asset. It's just, to me, it's the cost of paying for a vacation. But Dan, I'd let you chime in.
Dude, I'm with you on that one. It's a little different. Let me put it this way. If they're telling you at all that you have any ownership in it and there's any equity portion of it, then that probably does need to be reported somehow. That would be the one thing I would say to you. The whole maintenance stuff and all, that's a totally different situation. We'll do this last thing here. If my MyCap says your estimated EFC is $80,000, do you still recommend that we book an hour consult? The question is, why is your EFC $80,000? Is there anything that can be done to reduce your EFC? And not only that, but are you looking at the right kinds of colleges? Are you having your student consider the right kinds of schools based on the merit scholarships that they may be able to get to reduce that EFC down? Because remember, your student is the only one who's got the ability to reduce the overall cost. All right, Chuck, what a night. It was great, man. 52 questions answered, and we really appreciate all you folks joining us this evening. We hope that you'll come back in 2 weeks again and join us on the office hours. But again, Chuck, thanks for being with me tonight. This was definitely a privilege and terrific having you with me.
I appreciate you having me. And if you'll have me back, I'll do it again.
Yeah, this was fun. So folks, best of luck to you all. We wish you the very best with the college process. And don't forget the OH15 discount that you can use for any future purchases there. But everybody have a good evening. Take care.